Jacqueline knows the truth. Money can't buy happiness, but it makes life a lot easier. She'd rather be a rich commoner than a broke noblewoman any day of the week. She almost forgot her bear Colin, but she's not leaving without him. It's time to get to work. Jacqueline is ready to go, but her uncle isn't letting her leave that easily. He's playing the family card, promising to find her a husband if she just stays a bit longer. She's grateful for the offer, but an arranged marriage isn't exactly in her plans. She's got her own path to follow, and it starts right now. Jacqueline is being realistic. She doesn't need a husband, she needs a paycheck. Her uncle offers to help, even promising to take care of her mother's expenses, but she turns him down. She's done relying on others, and is ready to stand on her own. The world is changing fast, and she's determined to keep up with it. She's finally moving on, but where will this new path actually lead her? Jacqueline is finally facing the cold hard truth about her missing father. It's been 3 years since the Baron disappeared, and she's done waiting. She's accepted he's gone, even if they never found his body. Now she's ready to start living for herself and leave the past behind. She's heading out, but is she really prepared for what's waiting ahead? Jacqueline holds on to Colin, the last gift she ever received from her father. She still remembers her 15th birthday, before everything fell apart. Now she's chasing rumors of a legendary golden land filled with immense wealth. It's a dangerous gamble, but she's determined to find her own fortune. She's leaving it all behind for a chance at a new life in the new world. The dream of the golden land was nothing but a trap that swallowed everyone whole. Jacqueline's father was no exception, and when he never returned, the family lost everything. She went from a noble to a pauper overnight, with nothing left to her name. But she's done mourning. She knows she has to let go if she wants to survive. She's finally moving forward, but what kind of life is waiting for her now? Jacqueline is ready to close the chapter on her old life for good. She's taking a job for a man they call the Devil of the Black Fleet. Lord Windsor Preston has already gone through 12 governesses in 2 years. That makes Jacqueline number 13 on his list. She's finally arrived at his massive estate, but what is she walking into? Jacqueline finally comes face to face with the man they call the Devil, but he's not the monster she was expecting to see at all. He's actually so handsome, it's almost dangerous to look at him. She's completely stunned, but she manages to pull herself back together. She gives a formal curtsy and greets her new master for the very first time. Jacqueline tries to be friendly, but Lord Preston shuts her down in a heartbeat. He's cold and professional, and he's not here to make any friends. She's waiting for him to bring up her father or the family's bankruptcy. But he doesn't care about her tragic past or her lack of money. He's only interested in her education and what she actually knows. Lord Preston is grilling her like she's in the middle of a military interrogation. He doesn't care about small talk or being polite. He just wants the facts. When she says her grades were quite good, he immediately shuts her down. He hates vague answers and demands total precision in everything she says. Jacqueline's starting to realize this man is going to be a total nightmare to work for. The interview is finally over, and it looks like Jacqueline got the job. Lord Preston puts her in charge of his nephew, a boy named Benjamin. But as they start walking, she accidentally reaches out for his hand by mistake. She's so used to being a lady, she forgot for a second that she's just the help now. She plays it off quickly as they head down the hall to meet her new student. Jacqueline steps into the room and finally comes face to face with her new student. Benjamin is just a little boy, sitting quietly in a chair with a book in his lap. Lord Preston doesn't waste time and tells the kid to introduce himself right away. This is the moment her new life officially starts, as the boy looks up at her, but by the look on his face, it's hard to tell if he's actually happy she's here. Jacqueline finally meets her new student, and he's way cuter than she ever expected. Did they really say he was only 6? He looks like he stepped right out of a fairy tale. Windsor calls him over, and the boy immediately closes his book to greet them. It's a pleasure to meet you. I am Benjamin Preston. Wait, something about that name doesn't add up. Benjamin is so polite, it's actually kind of scary. He doesn't act like a kid, he acts like a soldier. Jacqueline can't believe it, but there's a reason. This little boy is so stiff and formal. It turns out Windsor wasn't always the Marquis. He spent years at sea, living the life of a soldier. The title actually belonged to his older brother Geoffrey, who married the king's daughter, and had a son named Benjamin. But after a tragic accident took both his parents, little Benjamin was left all alone in the world. So Windsor inherited the title and the boy. But there's a huge catch that nobody's talking about. High society is ruthless, and they're all whispering that he's nothing more than a commoner's bastard. Even the king looks down on him, and he's fighting tooth and nail to take Benjamin away. The house of Preston is basically a war zone, and the rumors are only getting worse. Jacqueline realizes she's in way over her head, but as a governess, she's just here to do a job, right? One thing is clear: Windsor is dead serious about this boy's education. Benjamin's etiquette is flawless, and his room is spotless. Not a single thing is out of place. But he's only 6, and he's already being raised to be a stiff soldier, just like his uncle. Windsor asks if there's a problem, but he clearly has no idea how sad this actually is. Jacqueline decides to try a different approach, and kneels down to the boy's level. "Hi there, Benjamin. I'm Jacqueline Somerset, but you can just call me Jackie. That's what my friends call me, and I hope we can be friends too." Windsor isn't making this easy. He reminds Jacqueline that this little boy is the future Marquis. He expects total professionalism, and he's already laying down the law. Jacqueline looks at Benjamin and realizes something's wrong. The kid is so stiff, he hasn't even smiled once. Then Windsor drops a bombshell. He wants a full curriculum, ready by dinner tonight. Dinner is at 7, which gives her almost no time at all. But she's not giving up. She turns to Benjamin with a friendly smile. "Since we're going to be spending a lot of time together, how about you show me around the mansion?" Benjamin is hesitating, so Jacqueline decides it's time for Plan B. She plays the lonely card, telling him she's new and doesn't know anyone here. "Could you please help me out, Benjamin?" It works like a charm. The boy doesn't say a word, but he starts leading the way. He's a sweet kid at heart, and Jacqueline is already starting to really like him. But the clock is ticking, and Windsor is right there, watching every second. "You finished just in the nick of time." He's not here for games, and the real work is about to begin. Jacqueline hands over the new curriculum, and even though she's nervous, she's standing her ground. Windsor looks it over, and he can't believe what he's reading. He asks if she misunderstood his orders, because this doesn't look like schoolwork at all. Building secret hideouts and having picnics? He's looking for results, not playtime. But Jacqueline doesn't flinch. She tells him straight up that building trust is more important than books. Windsor's expression turns cold as he gives her one final warning: "Do not disappoint me, Miss Somerset." The stakes just got a whole lot higher. Windsor has it all mapped out. Benjamin is heading to boarding school next year, and he needs to be ready. But Jacqueline isn't backing down so easily. She argues that the boy needs a chance to be a kid. Windsor shuts her down in an instant. He reminds her that as the Preston heir, Benjamin has to be better than everyone else. Jacqueline realizes they're on completely different pages here, but she's one step ahead. She pulls out a second curriculum, just in case. She's not done fighting for Benjamin yet. Jacqueline plays it smart and shows Windsor her backup plan. He's actually impressed and tells her to start first thing tomorrow. It pays to be prepared, but before she leaves, she decides to push her luck a little. She asks the one question that's been on her mind since she got here: why did all the previous teachers quit? The room goes silent, and Windsor's expression says everything. She might have just crossed a line she can't come back from. Windsor leaves her with a cryptic warning that she'll find out the truth sooner than she thinks. Jacqueline is left completely in the dark, wondering what he could possibly mean. As she heads out, the butler steps in with an invitation from the Count of East Hill. It's the third time the Count has asked for a dinner meeting, but Windsor doesn't even hesitate. He's not interested in playing social games. He shuts it down without a second thought, leaving everyone wondering what he's really hiding. Another invitation, another cold rejection. Windsor doesn't care who he offends. The rumors were right. He really is a recluse who hates being seen by the outside world. But life goes on, and dinner is served. It's time for Jacqueline to start her new role. She's actually excited for her first meal at the Preston estate. She sits with Benjamin, trying to break the ice, but the empty chair at the head of the table says everything. Benjamin is on edge, and Jacqueline can see it. The boy is terrified of something coming. The Marquis has arrived. Windsor is right on time, 7 on the dot, just like a machine. He doesn't even sit before the air in the room turns to ice. Benjamin tries to speak up, suggesting they eat together, but he's barely audible. Windsor cuts him off. "Speak clearly, never mumble your words." The boy snaps to attention, repeating his request, like he's facing a judge, instead of his own family. "I'll eat later," Windsor says, and just like that, he walks out. Jacqueline can't believe it. He's actually leaving, without even sitting down. Talk about a cold shoulder. She looks over at Benjamin. The boy looks crushed by his father's exit. She needs to fix this, so she puts on a smile and tells a little lie. "I guess Lord Preston isn't ready to dine with me. We had a bit of a disagreement earlier." She takes the blame, just to see the boy feel a little better. But the tension in this house isn't going away that easily. My uncle doesn't eat with anyone, Benjamin says quietly, trying to make excuses for the man who just left. Jacqueline sees right through it. The boy is just being kind. But the truth is heartbreaking. If Windsor is always like this, it means Benjamin has been eating alone this entire time. 12 teachers came before her, but none of them stayed. None of them made him feel at home. She gives him a smile. Well then, you'll just have to dine with me from now on. Later that night, the house is silent, but Jacqueline is wide awake, staring at the ceiling. I can't sleep, she says to the darkness, realizing just how much this little boy is counting on her. 1 sheep, 2 sheep. Jacqueline is trying everything to fall asleep, but her mind won't shut off. She's still stuck on what happened at dinner. How can a man refuse to eat with his own nephew? It's not just that though. The rumors about Windsor are everywhere. They say he's a ghost at every social event, never attends parties, and won't even look at a woman during a gala. The stories all say the same thing, that Windsor Preston is the most arrogant and rude man alive. She stares at the ceiling, wondering if the rumors are actually true, or if there's something even darker hiding behind that cold face. Maybe some tea will help, Jacqueline says, stepping out into the dark hallway. What's that? You're scared to be alone? She teases the bear. Good grief, you're such a baby. She's not alone though. She's got Colin tucked under her arm. She's joking, but the truth is, this house is massive and way too quiet. When you're walking down a dark path with no end in sight, even the smallest bit of warmth can be a lifeline. She knows that feeling all too well, because she's been in the dark before, and she's not going back. It's a strange feeling, walking a path without knowing where it actually ends. Jacqueline finally makes it to the kitchen without getting lost in this maze of a house. Now, where's the kettle? She asks, looking around the dim room. She finds what she needs, but just as she's getting settled, a strange sound cuts through the silence. Did I hear something? She whispers, looking toward the window. The wind is howling, but that didn't sound like the wind at all. That wasn't the wind. Jacqueline stops, dead in her tracks. She definitely heard something. She wasn't imagining it. Someone else is in this kitchen, hiding in the shadows. Is someone there? She asks, her voice echoing through the empty room. She grips Colin tight, trying to stay brave. It's probably nothing, she tells the bear, but she doesn't believe it for a second. Suddenly, a hand covers her mouth, cutting off her scream before it even starts. It's a bit late for screaming, don't you think, Miss Somerset? Windsor is standing right behind her, and he doesn't look happy to see her at this hour. Lord Preston? Jacqueline asks, finally catching her breath. She's relieved. It's just him, but Windsor isn't exactly in a friendly mood. What exactly are you doing here at this hour? He asks, his voice cold and demanding. Jacqueline stammers, trying to find an excuse, but then she sees it. Ah, she says, looking at him in a whole new light. You really do look like Benjamin, she blurts out with a bright smile. There are so many nasty rumors about Windsor Preston, saying he's arrogant and rude, but looking at him right now, he doesn't look like that man at all. To her eyes, the rumors couldn't be further from the truth. I didn't realize it during the day, Jacqueline says, looking at him closely. Your hair is usually swept back, but right now, it's so soft and fluffy, it's like a cloud, she adds, completely caught up in the moment. Windsor just stands there, speechless. He doesn't know how to react to her being this close, just like Benjamin's. She finishes with a smile. She's comparing the powerful Marquis to a little boy, and she has no idea what she's just done. Jacqueline got caught wandering the halls at night, clutching her teddy bear, and her excuse was absolutely priceless. She claimed the bear was the one who was scared, not her, but Lord Preston didn't seem to buy it. Turns out, they were both just looking for a late-night drink, and now, things are getting awkward. Windsor couldn't understand why a lady like her was doing her own chores instead of calling a maid, but Jacqueline didn't care about the rules. She was used to taking care of herself. That's when he realized she wasn't some fragile flower. She was actually a lot tougher than she looked. He turned her down and walked away, but his opinion of her just completely changed. Windsor tried to act tough, saying he could handle anything on his own, but Jacqueline was one step ahead. She used his own words to set a hilarious trap and asked him to carry her teddy bear back to her room. Since her hands were full, she played the lady in need, and now the powerful Marquis is stuck holding a toy in the middle of the night. He's completely speechless, but there's no way he can say no now. Windsor wasn't about to fall for her little trick. He called her bluff and did something she never expected. Instead of taking the bear, he grabbed the heavy tray, leaving her stunned and still holding her childhood toy. He's playing the gentleman on his own terms now, and Jacqueline doesn't know how to react. They're walking back to her room together, but the tension is just getting started. Jacqueline thanked him for being so kind, but Windsor still tried to act like he didn't care by telling her to call a maid. He kept his distance, but before he left, he wished her a good night, using her name for the very first time. That one little gesture completely caught her off guard, and she couldn't help but watch him walk away into the shadows. She's starting to see a different side of him, one that's hidden behind that cold, noble mask. But as he disappears, she's left wondering, did he actually just do that on purpose? Jacqueline couldn't believe he actually said good night back. It was so unexpected from someone like him. She realized he's actually a lot like Benjamin. Hidden behind that serious noble face is a heart of gold. He has this blunt kindness where he just can't turn his back on anyone who really needs help. She whispered her secret to her teddy bear Colin as the night finally started to fade away into a brand new day. But with the morning sun comes a whole new set of royal problems waiting for her at the estate. Morning finally arrived, and Jacqueline was back in her professional zone as teacher Somerset, ready for the day. She found Benjamin waiting for his lesson, and they swapped polite greetings like they always do. She's acting like nothing happened last night, but you can tell her mind is still a little bit elsewhere. Once she dismissed Betty, it was time to get down to business and start their first art history class. The lesson is starting, but in a house full of secrets, even a simple art class could lead to trouble. Jacqueline started her lesson talking all about art and the different styles of famous painters to keep things professional. But while she's lecturing, she's actually keeping a very close eye on Betty the maid, waiting for her to leave. She's playing it cool, acting like she's just focused on the history, but she's really counting every single second. Betty is definitely loyal, maybe even a bit too much, because she's always lingering around, watching every move. Finally the door closed, and the maid was gone. Now that they're alone, the real reason for this lesson is about to begin. Windsor still prefers his old school carriage over those new cars, because he doesn't trust unreliable machines. His aide finally brought the background report on Jacqueline Somerset, and it turns out she's actually brilliant, but since her father lost everything in business, the high society snobs don't respect her at all anymore. That makes her a target for the king's bribes, so Windsor's planning to keep a very close eye on her. He's worried about how long she'll last before the politics of the palace tear her apart. The aide is betting that Jacqueline won't even last 2 months in this house before she quits. It turns out the king has a habit of bribing every single tutor with piles of gold to do his dirty work. So far nobody has been able to say no to that kind of money, and they all ended up betraying the family. Jacqueline is actually the 13th person to take this job, which isn't exactly a lucky number. The aide just hopes she doesn't end up becoming a kidnapper, because the king is always watching. Windsor tells Roman not to get his hopes up, because in this world, it's almost impossible to trust anyone. But for a second, he looks at Jacqueline and wonders if she might actually be the one exception. Just as he's starting to have a little faith, a terrifying scream rips through the air from inside the house. That's the second floor, where Benjamin is, and Windsor knows something has gone horribly wrong. He's not waiting around to find out what, because his son is in serious danger right now. Windsor can't believe this is happening so much sooner than he expected. He's already thinking the absolute worst about Jacqueline. Is she a kidnapper or just a spy? He charges inside, screaming at the maids to get out of his way. As he races toward his son's room, he keeps calling out for Benjamin, but there's no answer. From the second floor, just a heavy silence. Then he stops dead, right in his tracks, because there's blood all over the floor, and it's still fresh. Windsor can't believe what he's seeing right in front of his eyes. Everything he feared about this house and the new tutor is finally happening. He's completely frozen, trying to process the scene before him, but it's not good. Whatever is going on in this room, it's much worse than he imagined. Windsor stepped inside, calling out for Benjamin, but the only thing waiting for him was a pool of blood. He couldn't believe it. What is all this? William rushed into the room, shouting for the Marquis, but he stopped dead the second he saw the state of the floor. Then out of the shadows, they finally appeared. Jacqueline and Benjamin stood there in silence, their expensive clothes completely soaked in red. The boy looked up and whispered one word, "Uncle." Windsor stood there, demanding an explanation for the absolute mess. In the middle of the room, he asked her, "What happened to the lesson on art movements?" Jacqueline didn't even flinch. She just smiled and said, "Real experience is better than 100 explanations." She looked around the room, covered in red stains, and asked if it finally looked like a child's room. Windsor wasn't buying it. His voice turned cold as he called her name. Jacqueline knew this wasn't the place to have this conversation, not in front of the boy. She asked to speak in private, to keep the child out of their argument. Windsor didn't say much. He just gave her an order. "Come to my study in 30 minutes. He turned and walked away, leaving everyone wondering what's going to happen when that door closes. Windsor couldn't even look at her anymore. He told her to go and change her clothes before they had a real talk. Looking at that stained dress was making it impossible to stay rational. Jacqueline did as she was told. She changed into something clean and headed straight to the Marquis's study. Windsor was waiting for her. He didn't waste any time and asked if she had any kind of excuse for what he just saw. Jacqueline didn't back down. She explained that painting directly on the walls was just a way to make the lesson relatable. She admitted she should have put it in the curriculum and said she regretted surprising him like that. But was it really just paint? Windsor wasn't so sure, and the look on his face said this conversation was far from over. Windsor sat in his study, still trying to understand why she let the boy ruin the expensive wallpaper instead of using a canvas. Jacqueline didn't miss a beat. She asked him if he really thought the future Marquis could be limited by a tiny piece of fabric. She knew exactly how to handle him, and then she asked if he even knew that Benjamin loved ships. Windsor looked closer at the black paint and realized it wasn't just a random mess. Benjamin stood there, proudly showing off his work. It was a massive battleship from the Black Fleet, the kind that protects the seas. The boy explained how his ship wipes out pirates and keeps everyone safe. It wasn't just a drawing, it was his dream, painted right on the wall. Benjamin was so excited. He talked for over an hour about the Royal Navy and every ship he painted. Jacqueline watched him, noting how the quiet boy suddenly had so much to say about his art. Windsor wasn't impressed yet. He wanted to know how letting a kid mess up the walls counted as a real education. Jacqueline had it all planned. She was going to teach him a whole new language by letting him talk about the things he loves. She looked at Windsor with a playful smile and asked if he really thought she'd do this just for her own fun. Windsor realized this was a calculated move. She wasn't just a teacher, she was a strategist. He didn't want to miss whatever she was planning next, so he told her he'd be watching the lesson from the sidelines. Jacqueline agreed to let him watch, but she knew it wasn't going to be an easy afternoon. By the time the sun started to set, the lesson was finally over, and she could finally take a breath. She collapsed onto a chair, completely exhausted from the pressure of being watched every single second. Windsor didn't take his eyes off her. It felt like he was just waiting for her to make one tiny mistake. But as she started to pack up her things, she noticed something sitting on the desk. It was a pair of glasses, left right on top of some official papers. Lord Preston must have forgotten them in a hurry. She stared at them, wondering if this was just an accident or another one of his little tests. William was in a panic, searching every corner for a missing document, until Jacqueline stepped in to save the day. She found the paper and realized it was a massive guest list for a birthday banquet for little Benjamin. William admitted it's been years since they had a party, because the Marquis usually hates crowds. Jacqueline laughed it off, but something else caught her eye. She picked up the glasses Windsor left behind. She put them on just to see, but everything stayed perfectly clear. There was no prescription. The glasses were fake, and now she had to wonder what else the Marquis was hiding from her. William laughed and told her the truth. Windsor doesn't actually need those glasses. He just wears them to look the part. The old man said his lordship's vision is actually perfect. He's just that dedicated to his personal style. Jacqueline offered to take them back to the Marquis herself. She couldn't help but find the whole thing a little bit funny. As she walked away, her mind shifted to the upcoming banquet. She needed to find the perfect gift for little Benjamin. But her thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a very familiar and very stern voice echoing through the hall. It was Mrs. Ritz, barking orders at the staff. She wanted everything to be absolutely perfect. For the Preston family, the pressure was on, and it looked like this birthday party was going to be a very serious affair. Jacqueline stopped the head maid right in her tracks. She had a question about the flowers. Mrs. Ritz didn't like being questioned. She's the one in charge of the household staff, and she knows her job. It's a classic clash between the governess and the head maid. One has the noble blood, the other has the keys. This kind of power struggle happens all the time. It's like a game of chess, where every single move is about who's really boss. Mrs. Ritz felt the pressure, with the other servants watching her every move. She couldn't afford to look weak now, but Jacqueline wasn't trying to start a fight. She just knew something the head maid didn't. One of the guests has a serious allergy, and those flowers would turn the banquet into a total disaster. Jacqueline explained that a few years back, a guest actually fainted at a major banquet, all because of the pollen. Since that disaster, there's been a rule to keep those flowers away from any party that lady attends. And since she's back in the capital now, Jacqueline figured it was better to play it safe. Mrs. Ritz realized she almost made a massive mistake. She thanked Jacqueline for the heads up. The tension finally broke, and Jacqueline offered a bit of a peace treaty. She told the head maid, "Just call me Jackie." It's been a long time since Jacqueline felt this kind of pressure. The banquet guest list is a total nightmare. She recognized almost every name on that paper, people she hasn't seen in years. There are old friends from boarding school and noble ladies she used to dance with at every major ball. Back then, she was one of them, but everything's different now. She stopped in front of the mirror and looked at herself. The big question is, how can she face them looking like this? Windsor just got another royal invitation, and he's already looking for a way out. His aide warned him, they've already said no 5 times in a row, and they're out of excuses. The Marquis didn't even blink before coming up with a brand new plan. Just tell them, I'm having a funeral, my own funeral. His aide couldn't believe it. Some people really don't know how to joke. The king isn't playing around anymore. He's rigging the trial and picking his own judges just to win. Roman's aide suggested, maybe it's time to just give in and bow down once. But Roman wasn't having any of it. If you give an inch, they'll take a mile. He lives by a simple rule, never compromise with the enemy, no matter who they are. But why is the king so obsessed with Benjamin? There's definitely something he's not telling them. The king is a greedy man. He won't even step down for his own son, and now he's eyeing Benjamin. Since the boy is third in the line of succession, he's the perfect tool for a power struggle. Roman Miller realized the king might be using the poor kid as a shield to protect his own throne. Windsor knew they had to act fast. Find a lawyer, he told his aide, but it can't be just anyone. It has to be someone the king can't touch. Roman Miller was just heading out when he ran into Jacqueline at the door. He told her the Marquis was free, so she could go right in. She didn't come empty-handed though. Windsor had left his glasses behind. He was surprised she didn't just send a servant to drop them off, but she played it off like it was no big deal, just a quick favor. Jacqueline couldn't help but tease him a bit. Even a man as perfect as Lord Preston has his clumsy moments. She was ready to leave, but Windsor stopped her just to say one thing, good luck with the lesson. That little bit of support was all she needed. She walked away with a huge smile. But she's got a plan. Tomorrow's lesson is going to be done exactly her way. Jacqueline had a secret, and she was determined not to get caught, no matter what. The next day was bright and sunny, the perfect time for an outdoor lesson. She spotted a cicada and tried to get Benjamin to catch it, just for fun, but the kid wasn't having any of it. A Preston heir doesn't touch bugs, he told her. It's like their roles were totally swapped. The student was acting more like the adult. Jacqueline told him it was okay to just be a kid, since nobody else was around to see. She even offered to keep watch while he caught as many bugs as he wanted. Benjamin finally gave in and started having fun while she enjoyed the quiet afternoon. She hoped things would stay this peaceful forever, but the kid had other plans. He came running back with a huge grin and shoved a gross cicada shell right in her face. That scream was way louder than Jacqueline intended, and it brought Windsor running. He wasn't happy to see the heir of the family acting so childish by teasing a lady. He sent Benjamin straight to his room to think about what he'd done. Until dinner time, Jacqueline felt totally responsible. The poor kid got in trouble, all because of her. But before she could say a word, Windsor told her to stay behind. He wanted a private word with her. Windsor didn't waste any time getting to the point. He wanted to know why the heir was playing with bugs. Jacqueline stepped up and took the blame. She tried to call it a biology lesson to help Benjamin find his passions, but Windsor wasn't impressed at all. He reminded her that a future marquis doesn't have time for useless hobbies. In his world, only power and social status matter. He made it clear that Benjamin's life wasn't going to be an easy one. Jacqueline realized there was no point in arguing anymore. Windsor wasn't going to change his mind. She apologized and promised it wouldn't happen again. He just gave her a cold dismissal. As she walked away, she heard a loud clatter from his desk. It didn't sound like he was just angry. Suddenly everything started to click. She finally understood the real reason why the Lord always eats alone. Windsor checked his watch. Dinner was already an hour behind schedule. He headed inside, expecting an empty room, but someone was already waiting for him. Jacqueline smiled. "You're a bit late, Lord Preston." She didn't waste any time dismissing the butler, so they could finally speak in private. William left the room, closing the door behind him, leaving the two of them completely alone. Windsor didn't waste time. "What is it you want to say?" Jacqueline didn't flinch. She listed every habit, every social event he'd been avoiding lately. She claimed she knew his secret reason and offered to help him keep it hidden. Windsor looked at her with a cold smile. "And what exactly do you think that reason is?" Windsor leaned back. "I'll hear you out first," he said quietly. Jacqueline didn't hesitate. She reminded him how his life changed in a single second, from a common soldier to a powerful marquis, all because of Lord Geoffrey's will. She told him he never had the chance to learn the games high society plays. These rules weren't meant for kindness, they were built to keep people out. Jacqueline didn't hold back. She explained how these complex rules were just a tool. They were designed to separate the elite from everyone else, making it impossible for outsiders to keep up. "That's why you're stuck," she said firmly. "You're so afraid of making one mistake that you've stopped living. But this world is small, and rumors travel fast. You're a noble now, and you can't keep hiding forever." Jacqueline made her move. She offered to teach him everything he needed to know about high society. "I'm very good at keeping secrets," she said with a smile. "I'll take them to my grave." Windsor knew she was right. He'd stayed away from society for too long, and now he had no allies for the custody battle. If the king found out he was just the son of an opera singer, everything would be over. But one question kept bothering him. Why was she doing all of this? Windsor didn't buy it. "Nothing in this world is ever truly free," he said coldly. "What's your price?" he asked her. "A massive sum of money, or maybe even more?" He told her to just speak freely, expecting her to name a high number. But Jacqueline surprised him. She didn't want gold, she just wanted him to respect her teaching. From now on, Windsor went silent. This wasn't the deal he was expecting. Windsor couldn't believe it. All she wanted was respect for her work. It seemed too simple. Jacqueline didn't blink. She promised him this deal would work in his favor. "I was born into an earl's family," she said confidently. "I can turn you into a perfect gentleman." She started right then, correcting his posture and telling him to keep his elbows off the table. Windsor finally gave in. He accepted her terms, but he still had one big question. "Why go through all this trouble for me?" he asked. And Jacqueline was finally ready to tell him. Jacqueline finally admitted the real reason she was doing all this was for Benjamin. "I just want to see that boy smile," she said softly. "I haven't seen him truly happy yet." Windsor went silent. He could tell she actually cared about the kid. "Very well," he said at last. "We have a deal." And they shook on it. The training started right then and there with the basics of high-class dining. She explained the difference between serving styles and told him next time they'd practice the real thing. The training started, but Windsor's old habits were hard to break. He handled his napkin like he was planting a flag. Jacqueline didn't hold back. She told him to be more gentle and fold it properly on his lap. Windsor tried his best, but he started asking too many questions. Why does the knife have to face inward? Jacqueline was stumped. She knew the rules, but she didn't actually know the reasons why. She just kept going. Then came the fish, and Windsor made a huge mistake. "You mustn't flip it over," she shouted. But was it already too late? Jacqueline finally found a reason for the rule. "We don't flip the fish because it looks messy. she explained with a smile. Windsor wasn't impressed. This etiquette is just too complex and tedious, he complained, and she actually agreed. But then she changed the subject to something a bit more personal. Have you picked a gift for Benjamin's birthday? Windsor nodded. He already had something special in mind, and Jacqueline was curious to see what he chose. A complete collection of royal palace history, he said proudly. But would a little boy actually want a history book? Jacqueline asked what he gave the boy last year, and the answer was even worse. A collection of myths. Windsor said calmly. It's required reading for boarding school, after all. Jacqueline couldn't believe it. She tried to explain that a real gift should actually make the person happy. Windsor didn't look pleased. He stood up and started to walk away, without saying a word, leaving her in total silence. She thought she'd blown her chance, but then he stopped. Tell me the date and time, he said. I'll need to fix my schedule. Windsor looked back one last time. He was actually serious about making time for her plan. Jacqueline couldn't believe what she was hearing. The cold Lord Preston was finally starting to listen to her. She didn't hesitate for even a second. Of course, Lord Preston, she shouted happily. Everything felt different. In that moment, the training was over, but their real journey was just beginning.